My husband and best friend were cheating for 5 years. Introduction: the invisible stranger. They say that the person you love is often a mirror, reflecting back the best version of yourself. For over 20 years, I looked into that mirror and saw a life built on a foundation of granite. I saw childhood innocence, a shared history, and a future that seemed written in the stars. My name, my identity, and my very sense of reality were anchored to a man I believed was my soulmate. I believed that even if the world outside turned to chaos, the walls of our home were impenetrable. I believed that we were the exception to every rule about the frailty of human relationships. But mirrors can be deceptive. Sometimes they don't reflect reality. They create a projection, a hologram designed to keep you looking in the wrong direction. For 5 years, I lived in a house that wasn't a home, but a carefully constructed stage. I was a wife, a mother, and a partner to a man who didn't exist. The man I married in 2011, the boy I had known since we were 5 years old, was a mask. He was a character played by an actor who never broke frame. And when that mask finally slipped on Valentine's Day, 2026, it didn't just crack, it shattered into 1,000 jagged pieces, revealing a landscape of deception so vast it felt like a physical weight crushing the air from my lungs. This is not just a story of infidelity. Infidelity is a lapse in judgment, a momentary weakness of the flesh. What I experienced was a lifestyle. This is an exploration of how a human being can maintain a double life for half a decade, how they can kiss their children goodnight with the same lips used to tell 1,000 lies, and what happens when the good man you've known since childhood transforms into someone unrecognizable. This is the blueprint of a betrayal that took 20 years to build and only minutes to destroy. Chapter 1: Fused at the Root. To understand the depth of this betrayal, you have to understand our history. Hector and I weren't just a couple, we were an institution. In our small town, we were the golden couple. Our history didn't start with a dating app or a chance meeting at a bar. It started on the sun-drenched sidewalks of our childhood neighborhood. We were the kids who traded snacks in kindergarten, the teenagers who shared a clumsy first kiss behind the bleachers, and the young adults who navigated the terrors of the real world hand in hand. By the time we married in 2011, our lives weren't just intertwined. They were fused at the root. Our families were one. Our bank accounts were shared. Our memories were so overlapped that I often couldn't tell where my story ended and his began. We had a social circle that felt more like a tribe than a group of friends. At the center of that tribe were 6 of us, but the core was Hector, myself, and our closest friends, Sally and Trey. In a twist of fate that felt poetic at the time, Hector and I married the same year they did. We were a family by choice. We spent our summers on camping trips and our winters huddled around fireplaces, dreaming of the lives we would build. We thought we were invincible. We thought the bond we shared was a fortress. But in 2014, the poetry turned into a eulogy. Trey was killed in a horrific road accident on a Tuesday afternoon, a day that should have been ordinary. The grief was a physical presence in our lives, a thick, suffocating fog. We watched Sally's world collapse in real time. She was a young widow, lost in a sea of legal paperwork and emotional agony. As her family, we stepped in. We didn't even have to discuss it, because Hector was between jobs at the time, and I was the primary breadwinner, working long hours as a senior project manager. It made sense for him to take the lead in supporting her. He was the one with the flexible schedule. He handled her household repairs. He dealt with the insurance companies, and he sat with her through the dark hours when the silence of her house became too loud. I encouraged it. I looked at my husband and felt a profound sense of pride. I thought I was married to a man of unparalleled empathy, a man who would put his own life on hold to carry the burden of a grieving friend. I didn't realize that in my attempt to be a supportive friend and a trusting wife, I was hand-delivering my husband to a woman who would help him dismantle my life. Chapter 2: The Quiet Erosion. Between 2014 and 2021, the service Hector provided to Sally transitioned from neighborly help into something clandestine. Looking back, the signs were there, hidden in plain sight. They were camouflaged by my own exhaustion and my absolute, unwavering trust in the man I had known since I was a child. I was the provider. I took that role seriously. I worked 50, 60 hours a week to ensure our children, a son born in 2016 and a daughter in 2018, had everything they needed. I wanted them to have the stability we grew up with. I viewed Hector's frequent absences as a sign of his community spirit. When he told me he was at Sally's house fixing a leak or checking the security system at 9:00 p.m., I didn't question it. I was home, balancing a high-pressure career and 2 toddlers, feeling guilty that I wasn't doing more to help our grieving friend myself. The gaslighting was subtle, like a slow leak in a basement. Whenever I expressed a need for more help at home, when the laundry was piling up or I was reaching a breaking point with work, Hector would pivot to Sally's vulnerability. He would sigh and look at me with a mix of pity and disappointment. "You have so much," he would say. "You have your health, your career, and your husband. Sally has nothing. How can you be so selfish as to begrudge her a few hours of my time?" He weaponized my own empathy against me. He made me feel like a villain for wanting my husband to be present for his own children. I was tired, yes. I was stretched thin, but I believed I was tired for a noble cause, building a future for my family. I convinced myself that my exhaustion was a badge of honor. Little did I know, the future Hector was building had no room for me. He was creating a separate universe, blocks away, where he played the hero to a woman who didn't care about the collateral damage. Chapter 3. The Valentine's Day Revelation. The year 2026 was supposed to be a year of reconnection. The previous years had been a blur of parenting and professional stress, and I felt the distance between Hector and me growing. I didn't suspect an affair. I just thought we had become roommates, as many couples do in the chaos of the middle years. I wanted to prioritize my marriage. I wanted to find the boy I had fallen in love with under the summer stars. My parents, who hadn't seen their grandchildren in far too long due to their own health issues, invited us for a visit in early February. Hector claimed he had official commitments and a series of essential repairs for his parents' property that couldn't be moved. He insisted I take the kids and go. "You need the break," he told me, kissing my forehead with a tenderness that I now realize was pure performance. While at my parents' house, a wave of nostalgia hit me. I looked at old photos of us, and I felt a sudden, overwhelming desire to surprise him. I wanted to show him that I was still in it, that I still saw him as my soulmate. My mother, sensing my desire to repair the bond, suggested I take a 48-hour solo trip back home. "Go surprise your husband for Valentine's Day," she said. "I'll watch the kids. They'll love the extra time with Grandma." I arrived at our house at 11:00 a.m. on February 14th. The air was crisp, and the neighborhood was quiet. I had a heart full of hope and a romantic surprise planned. A quiet dinner, a conversation that didn't involve schedules or bills. But when I walked through the front door, the silence of the house felt wrong. It wasn't the peaceful silence of an empty home. It was a heavy, expectant silence. It felt like the air was charged with something dark. I found them in the living room, on the sofa we had picked out together during my first pregnancy. The betrayal wasn't just in the act. It was in the sickening familiarity of it. They weren't hiding. They weren't scrambling. They were comfortable. The world didn't just stop. It inverted. The gravity shifted. The two people I trusted most in the entire world, my husband of 15 years and my best friend of 2 decades, were looking at me not with remorse or shame, but with the stunned silence of predators caught in a sudden, unwanted light. In that moment, the 20 years of granite foundation I thought I had turned into dust. I didn't scream. I didn't throw things. I didn't have the energy for a grand cinematic confrontation. I simply turned around and walked out. I went to the hotel I had booked for our romantic getaway, and for the first time in my life, I felt what it was like to be truly alone in a world that no longer made sense. My reality had been deleted. Chapter 4. The 5-year timeline of deceit. The following day, Hector showed up at the hotel. He didn't look like the confident man I knew. He looked smaller, more pathetic. He tried the standard script that men like him have used for centuries. It just happened. It was a one-time mistake. I was lonely because you were always working. But as I pushed, as I used the analytical skills I had developed in my career to dissect his lies, the timeline began to unravel. It wasn't a week. It wasn't a month of weakness. It was 5 years. The math of that betrayal is staggering. It is a calculation of cruelty that I still struggle to process. 5 years means that while I was pregnant with our daughter in 2018, suffering from morning sickness and swollen ankles, he was with her. While we were celebrating my son's first steps, he was checking his watch, waiting to go to her. Every holiday, every family dinner where Sally sat at our table, drank our wine, and played the part of the doting aunt to my children, she was actively participating in the destruction of their mother's life. They had shared jokes at my expense. They had built a secret language while I was in the next room, folding laundry or answering emails. The level of sociopathic commitment required to maintain that level of deception, while maintaining a normal family life, is something I didn't know Hector was capable of. I realized then that I hadn't just been cheated on. I had been lived alongside by a stranger. Chapter 5. The justification and the DARVO tactic. Then came the justification, the ultimate tool of the emotional manipulator. Once the initial shock wore off, Hector's tone shifted. He didn't stay in the role of the repentant husband for long. He began to frame his choice to cheat as a logical response to my neglect. He claimed I was always tired and emotionally unavailable. He turned my labor, the very work that paid for the roof over his head, the car he drove to Sally's house, and the food on our table, into a weapon to wound me. He spoke about my career as if it were a selfish hobby, rather than the lifeline of our family. "You weren't there for me," he said, his voice cold. "Sally was. She saw me. She appreciated me. You just saw me as a babysitter." This is the classic anatomy of a DARVO tactic: deny, attack, and reverse victim and offender. He denied the severity of his actions, attacked my character to diminish my standing, and then attempted to make himself the victim of my ambition. He wanted me to apologize to him for the 5 years he spent in another woman's bed. He wanted me to take responsibility for his lack of integrity. It was a masterclass in psychological warfare, designed to make me doubt my own sanity and worth. Chapter 6. The mask slips into malice. When it became clear that I would not be working on it, and when I took the step of informing our families, because I refused to carry the burden of his secrets any longer, the gentle Hector vanished forever. In his place emerged someone I can only describe as a monster of entitlement. The manipulation turned dark and aggressive. He began using our children as pawns in a sick game of emotional chess. He sent messages threatening to disappear and never see them again, or conversely, threatening to take them away so I would know what it's like to be alone. But the most sinister move was the weaponization of his own mental health. He began sending messages claiming that my stubbornness and my refusal to forgive would be the direct cause of his demise. He claimed that if the children grew up without a father, it would be my fault for breaking the family. He attempted to make me the warden of his life, a form of emotional terrorism designed to force compliance through guilt. He wanted to use my love for my children to force me back into a life of lies. However, his plan backfired in a way he never anticipated. My in-laws, his own parents, refused to be complicit. They had raised a man they thought was honorable, and they were horrified by what he had become. When my mother-in-law saw him with Sally just days after the discovery, acting as if they were a new couple in the honeymoon phase, she did what Hector never expected. She held him accountable. She kicked him out of their guest house. My father-in-law, a man of immense integrity, threatened to disinherit him. Hector, who relied entirely on my income and his parents' goodwill, realized his lifestyle was in jeopardy. And that is when the true manifesto began. Chapter 7. The digital evidence of a dark mind. True character is revealed not when things are going well, but when someone loses total control. Hector, feeling the walls close in and his support systems evaporating, retreated to the anonymity of the internet to vent his rage. He found communities of like-minded men who validated his sense of victimhood. Someone, a mutual acquaintance who was disgusted by his posts, sent me a link to a Reddit thread where he had been documenting his struggles. Reading his words was like descending into a basement with no lights and the smell of rot. He didn't sound like a grieving husband or a man who had made a mistake. He sounded like a man who viewed women and children as property. He spoke about me with a level of vitriol that was physically nauseating. He complained about my success, accusing me of using my salary to emasculate him. Most disturbingly, he spoke about our son, our own child, not with love, but with a bizarre, competitive jealousy. He viewed the time I spent nurturing our infant son as a personal affront to his own needs. He admitted in these posts to harboring deep-seated rage simply because my attention was focused on the survival and growth of our children rather than his every whim. He described his children not as human beings, but as obstacles to his personal happiness. It was the ultimate reveal. The family man was a role he played, but the aggrieved ego was the reality. Chapter 8. 109 pages of coercive control. As the legal proceedings for our divorce and custody began, the Reddit rants were only the tip of the iceberg. Once Hector realized that he could no longer manipulate me through tears or guilt, he turned to overt intimidation. He wanted to break me so that I would settle for a lower alimony and give him what he wanted. I now possess 109 pages of documented evidence, text messages, emails, and voice notes. This isn't just angry ex-behavior. This is the textbook definition of coercive control and digital harassment. He sent voice recordings that were intentionally disturbing, whispered threats designed to make me feel unsafe in my own skin, even in a locked house. He used language that made it clear he viewed me not as a person, but as an object he was losing. He threatened to take our daughter to another state, claiming he wouldn't let her be raised by a traitor who put her career before her husband's needs. In the eyes of the law, these 109 pages are evidence of a pattern of abuse. In the eyes of a survivor, they are the map of a man's descent into obsession. They prove that the kind husband was never the reality. He was just a mask that fit well until it was no longer useful. Chapter 9. The psychological toll and the what-if loop. The hardest part of surviving a monster isn't the legal battle or the financial restructuring. It's the mental one. I am currently stuck in a what-if loop that plays on repeat in the quiet hours of the night. I look back at the last 20 years and try to find the moment the switch flipped. Was he always this way? Was the boy I played with as a child always harboring this capacity for cruelty? Or did 5 years of living a lie, fueled by the bonding over a shared betrayal with Sally, rot his conscience until nothing was left? There is a specific kind of trauma that comes from realizing your entire adult life was a lie. It's called betrayal trauma, and it shatters your ability to trust your own senses. I feel a sense of shame that I didn't see it, even though I know logically that a skilled liar is impossible to detect. I feel like I let my children down by bringing them into a world with a father who views them as leverage. Every memory I have of the last 5 years is now tainted. Our vacations, our birthdays, our quiet nights, they are all scenes from a play where I was the only one who didn't know the script. Chapter 10. The path to safety and justice. As of this moment, my children and I are safe. The legal system, though slow, has functioned as it should. We have a domestic violence restraining order, DVRO, in place. The phone that once buzzed with 24/7 harassment is finally quiet. The 109 pages of his own words served as the primary witness against him. My attorney has described this as an open and shut case, not because of my testimony, but because of Hector's own digital footprint. In his arrogance, he believed he was untouchable. He believed that his version of the story would win, because he was the good guy in his own mind. But digital evidence doesn't lie, and it doesn't have a bias. His own words have become the bars of the cage he built for himself. We are moving forward. The process of unfusing our lives is painful, like tearing skin from bone. We are selling the house. I am reclaiming my maiden name. But with every day that passes, I feel a little more like a person and a little less like a victim. I am learning that my strength wasn't just in my ability to provide, but in my ability to survive the destruction of everything I thought I knew. Conclusion. A warning to the abyss. I chose to share this story because silence is the environment where monsters thrive. When we keep these stories hidden because of shame or embarrassment, we allow the abusers to maintain their masks in public. We allow them to move on to the next victim. To anyone listening who feels that gut feeling, that nagging sense that something is off, that your partner's support for a friend feels more like a lifestyle than an act of kindness. Pay attention. Your intuition is the only part of you that the gaslighter cannot reach. It is your internal compass, and it is rarely wrong. I lived a lie for 5 years, and while the truth burnt my world to the ground, I am thankful for the fire. It cleared away the rot. It showed me the true character of the people around me. It showed me that my in-laws were people of honor, and that my best friend was a hollow shell. Most importantly, the fire gave me the chance to raise my children in a home built on actual truth, rather than a beautiful, hollow deception. The road ahead is long. Rebuilding a soul takes time and patience, but Hector is about to learn the most important lesson of all. You can only control someone as long as they believe in your lies. Once the truth is out, you have nothing. He thought he owned me. He thought he was the architect of my life. He's about to find out that the only thing he truly owns is the wreckage of his own making. I am no longer a character in his play. I am the author of my own future. Drop a comment below and tell me what you would have done in his shoes. If you want more stories just like this, hit that subscribe button and leave a like on the video. It really helps the channel out. Thanks for hanging out with me today, and I'll see you in the next video.